This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610, and Papa Poto. Slicing through the cloud banks, Metal feels the pull of Urinus Island before it even comes into view. Not that there is much of a view when he finally descends, as unlike the blistering sands of Ares or the wide meadows of Kronos, this island is shrouded in a layer of rainy drizzle that obscures most of the landscape beyond what is immediately visible. Touching down in a clearing that bears the passage of time plainly through the ruins of the ancients' technology half swallowed by nature, the Bluebot cannot help but feel this is a place steeped in finality. He just hopes it won't be the final resting place for himself and those he loves. As if summoned by these thoughts, Sage flashes into view at his side, a troubled look on her usually impassive face as she comments that she can sense the End's presence more strongly here, a claim Metal agrees with, as there is a faint electricity to the air that has nothing to do with the weather. However, now is not the time for contemplation, and so looking to his sister, the mechanical hero questions where he is meant to find the ancient champions and their king, with Sage gesturing towards a series of towers just barely visible in the distance thanks to their immense height, as according to her findings, they were built to honor the heroes who stood against the End. Noting his appreciation for this information, Metal then takes off at top speed as he doesn't have a second to spare, since if he knows Sonic, his doppelganger will be completing his tower climbing mission with just as much haste. To her credit, Sage manages to keep pace as the pair fly up the side of the first tower, though when the robotic hedgehog reaches the top and lands, the AI is unable to follow, being denied access by a sepia force field that bursts into life around the entire tower top. However, this is not left as a mystery for long, as a female voice speaks up, angrily ordering Sage, who she calls a digital revenant, to leave. To Metal's surprise, he is able to understand this plainly despite the voice not speaking any language he knows, presumably a result of his cyber corruption, or just as shockingly, when he turns to face the speaker, he sees a taller and more lithe member of Chaos's species, with one of the little rock people Amy mentioned floating in the middle of her chest. Despite this abrasive first impression, Metal introduces himself and questions if she is one of the ancient heroes, though coldly, the woman claims that she is known to her people as Dragon, the pilot of Giganto, which he destroyed when he transformed into that crude imitation of a titan. Humbly, the android apologizes for this before insisting he was being misled by the End, which is why he is here, to learn the secret of harnessing his cyber corruption, so that he may defeat the cosmic horror and defend this world just as she and her comrades did. Coolly, Dragon replies that she knows. That is the only reason she has not barred him from her tower like she did his companion, since she has come to love this planet and wishes to see it saved, though she is not yet convinced that he is up to the task of saving it, since even all four titans combined were not enough to truly defeat the End, so a single machine will stand no chance. Earnestly, Metal requests a chance to change her mind, since he is willing to do whatever it takes to protect the world and the people he loves, with this giving Dragon the slightest bit of pause, as she remembers making the same declaration alongside her friends on the eve of battle eons ago. For a moment, neither speak. Then in a tone of what might be apprehension, the ancient hero replies that she will give him a test, and should he pass it, he may have her blessing. An instant later, the Bluebot finds himself in a large room resembling a temple or palace, with it not taking him long to surmise that this is a construct within cyberspace. Likewise, when 5 of the ancient attack robots he encountered on Kronos Island spawn in, he concludes that his test is to defeat them, and so starts powering up. On Dragon's call to begin, the quintet of drones lunge at Metal, with it being immediately apparent that they are stronger and faster than their real-world counterparts, though unfortunately for them they are not smarter, as playing on their simplistic attack patterns, Metal is easily able to dodge out of the way of their moves while subtly lining them up. Then, once he has them where he wants them, he activates his black shield and bursts forward, turning himself into an unstoppable battering ram that tears through the drones and ends the trial almost as soon as it had begun. In a flash, the android is once more standing on the top of Dragon's tower, and while the ancient does not have a face that clearly displays emotion, he is fairly certain she is giving him an impressed look as she states that she sees now he truly will go to any extreme to protect the ones he loves. Very well, she can respect that, and so offers him her blessing as promised. With this, she and the force field both vanish, leaving only the small stone creature who approaches Metal and bows slightly, signaling the end of this trial, while Sage at last floats over and praises her brother, as now he is 1/5 of the way towards his goal. Ever the logical one, Metal comments that he does not feel any different, nor does he believe he has gained any new information that would be pertinent to defeating the End, so perhaps it would be more prudent to head directly to the Ancient's king next, since time is short. However, here Sage shakes her head, as she reveals that the king's tower is sealed and will not activate until the other 4 heroes have given their blessing, so she's afraid they will have to do this the long way. Fortunately, the second trial against Wyvern's pilot Snake is equally brief, as in a fit of anger he declares that Metal's victory against his Titan was unearned since he had assistance from Sonic, before making the Blue Bot return to cyberspace to fight a series of heavily armored androids, though, like their offensive counterparts, they are no match for Dr. Eggman's greatest creation. Through this, Snake comes to accept that Metal truly is a worthy warrior, and so bestows him with his blessing as well. Having a hunch he knows how all the trials will go now, the heroic android is already prepared for a fight by the time he reaches the Tower of Tiger, though to his genuine shock, this ancient seemingly bears no ill will towards him at all, having been the pilot of Night which was destroyed by Sonic. In fact, he is deeply intrigued by Metal as a work of robotics, since as he is quick to reveal, he was the engineer behind the Titans and would love a chance to see how the field has advanced in the last 10,000 years. To this end, he offers Metal a deal. He will grant him his blessing if the android allows him to copy his schematics for future study, and being reminded a bit of Tails and his love of technology, the Blue Bot readily agrees, since this will in turn allow him to move on to the final trial as quickly as possible. As with the previous 3, this is overseen by the last of the Titan pilots, confirming that there is another that neither Metal nor his friends has fought yet, though this is not the only thing of note, as when he arrives, he is met with neither hostility nor excitement, but instead a stoic determination, as this ancient introduces himself as Crane, mentor to Tiger and the one who sealed the end away during their battle. Curiously, Metal questions how he did that, since if he and his friends cannot defeat the sinister entity, they may have to repeat Crane's tactic, though the ancient hero gravely states this should not be attempted lightly, as it requires a vast and powerful repository to store something like the end, with him having used his own Titan Supreme as the vessel. However, doing so cost him his life, just as it surely will for whoever carries out the deed, since no living being can withstand that much raw power passing through them. At these words, an idea enters Metal's mind as to how he might circumvent this latter problem. Though not wanting to contradict one who gave their life for the planet, the android thanks Crane for his sacrifice and this information, which he promises to put to good use. Nodding solemnly, the pilot states that he knows he will. Then, as he dissipates his own force field, he tells the Blue Bot that he has his blessing to see the king, so the time has come to complete his quest. Returning the nod Crane gave him even though the hero is now gone, Metal vows that he and his friends will finish what the ancient pilots started. Then, as the rain stops and a 5th tower comes into view, he powers up his jet engine and prepares to take flight. However, it seems that this last leg is one he must undertake on his own, as when Sage appears at his side again, it is with news that Sonic has silenced the final tower, meaning everyone caught between dimensions will be returned to the real world. Unfortunately, this also means the End has been freed from its prison. So now she must leave her brother, so she can help Father and the others as they attempt to hold off the cosmic horror until he can arrive. In an earnest voice, Metal urges her to be safe, with this making her flesh white and blue again, as she states that he does not need to worry about her. Though fixing his green optics upon the AI girl, he retorts that she is part of his family, just like his son and brothers, and so he will be concerned for her well-being until they are reunited when the battle is over. Hearing this, Sage does not revert to her black and red aesthetic as she previously had, instead simply giving her brother a determined nod before vanishing into thin air once more. When she reappears, it is much closer to the ground, as she floats over to where Sonic, his friends, and her father are all gathered. In his bombastic way, the Doctor praises Sage for getting him out of cyberspace, though in the same breath demands an update on what is going on, with the AI girl explaining that the two of them will need to ally with Sonic and Metal Sonic in order to prevent the destruction of all life on Earth. Grimacing grouchily, Eggman grumbles that this is an unappealing prospect, though he supposes if the world ends he won't be able to conquer it for his Eggman empire, so just this once he will consent to working with the blue rodent and his do-gooder posse. Smirking back at him, Sonic replies that he can feel the love already, but they can talk about making commemorative t-shirts later. Right now, they need a game plan. He then looks to Sage and asks how Metalhead's training is going, with the blue and white AI being happy to report that he's on his way to the final trial now, so he should be joining them shortly. This declaration earns relieved looks from Tails, Amy, and Emerald, while banging his fist together confidently, Knuckles grins that he better not take too long or they'll have beaten the end before he even gets here. Factually, Sage replies that she believes his assessment is erroneous, since even if her brother succeeds in turning his cyber corruption into power, she approximates that their plan only has a 0.0000714% chance of success. As one would expect, this puts a rather large dampener on the group's mood, though now isn't the time to worry about what might be, as in the distance a loud unearthly growling draws everyone's attention, with Sage surmising this must be the end returning from cyberspace, though it seems it has not yet escaped from Crane's Titan, so perhaps if they can destroy its vessel quickly, they might be able to prevent it from fully emerging into the real world. Flashing his usual cocky grin, Sonic asks if that increases their odds any, though adopting what might be a note of her brother's dry sense of humour, Sage replies that the change is negligible, to which the Blue Blur playfully chides that she's got to think positive, before leading his friends and allies through a thicket of trees and into a forest clearing where a hunched Titan with a long sniper rifle and 2 support drones stands waiting for them. This must be supreme, meaning it's time to begin the final battle for the fate of the world. Meanwhile, back with Metal, he has at last reached the King's Tower, though rather than being surrounded by a sepia bubble, he is instead brought directly into the cyberspace room where he undertook Dragon and Snake's trials. Here he finds what he can only assume is the King himself, though the man is somewhat different from his cohorts, as instead of having the rock creature in his chest, he stands behind it, being obscured by it in the chamber's shadows. Having dealt with royalty before, Metal bows low as he approaches the king, before beseeching him for help in turning his cyber corruption into power, as it is the only way he can see to defeat the end. Abrasively, the ancient monarch demands to be addressed as Master King, though being reasonably pleased with Metal's manners in contrast to Sonic's canonical impertinence, he states that he will assist him, though like Dragon he doubts the android can carry out the task of beating the end, as despite walking and talking like a person, he is simply a newer, smaller model of Titan, and the Titan's already failed once before. Choosing to ignore this jibe, Metal instead asks what he can do, and looking down upon the Bluebot imperiously, the Master King responds that he must pass a trial of resolve and cast aside that which holds him back, since he can sense something dwelling deep within the machine that if given the power of cyber corruption could prove just as calamitous to the world as the end. As he says this, Metal feels the Phantom Ruby being pulled off his body, while from its glistening core materializes an entity he has not seen for a long time, and had hoped to never see again. The Metal Commander. Striding forward with the confidence of one who knows he has power and lacks the concern for how it affects others, the commander growls that he always knew this day would come, as now that he has form again, he can destroy his loathsome copy at long last, and use the Phantom Ruby to conquer the world for their master. In a tone of horror, Metal asks the Master King if this is what he was talking about, and nodding, the ancient leader replies that he must rid himself of his dark doppelganger, since such a glaring weakness will prevent him from being forged into a perfect weapon. Though he doesn't much care for the phrasing, Metal cannot help but agree that allowing the Metal Commander anywhere near the power he seeks is a bad idea, and so bursting forward, he drives a jet-boosted kick into his larger counterpart's side, before leaping back and activating his black shield to block the raking steel claws the Commander swipes at him with in retaliation. In a tone of purest hate, the red-eyed robot then snarls that Metal has squandered the years he's had in control of their body, since if he had seized the Chaos Emeralds for himself rather than feeding them to that worthless Gizoid, he could have combined them with the Master Emerald and Phantom Ruby to upgrade himself into something capable of crushing the end even without cyber corruption. But instead, he settled for mediocrity, only copying enough life-form data from his weakling friends to serve as a pale imitation, and never striving to be the best like he was created to be. At these words, Metal's optics flash with fury, so that when he strikes back with a punch, it is enough to stagger the Metal Commander, as is the kick that follows. However, the Bluebot is not done yet, as powering up his jet engine, he shoulder barges his nemesis through a pillar before tossing him to the ground. In that moment, it is hard to tell which of them is the malevolent Killbot, though as Metal glares down at the Commander, he almost pityingly states that his sinister shadow understands nothing about him, his friends, or his family. In another life, he might have sought to teach him and show him the error of his ways, but he's out of time and the Commander is unrepentant, so we'll have to settle for giving him a swift disassembly. Returning to Sonic and the others, they have engaged Supreme together. In order to best do this, they have split into small teams, with Tails and Eggman attempting to reprogram and deactivate the support drones, Amy and Knuckles striking at the Titan's legs to try and bring it down, and Sonic transforming into his super state so he can confront the giant mech head-on. Meanwhile, Sage and Emerald coordinate from the sidelines, the former due to lacking much combat functionality, and the latter because of the promise to his dad. Together, they're able to apply decent pressure, with Eggman snapping at the heroes to focus on getting the Titan's rifle, since if he were to integrate it with his Eggmobile, he might be able to deal a fatal blow. While a good plan in theory, this is easier said than done, as right now the weapon is stored within Supreme's arm, which it is using to swing at Sonic, having deemed him the biggest threat. Figuring he can use this, the heroic hedgehog shoots forward and rams a knee into the Titan's head before falling back, in the hope that its mechanical brain will switch to gun configuration to attack him at range. damage, though unfortunately it seems Supreme has other methods of keeping up the fight, as from its back blossoms a pair of glowing red energy wings that it uses to take flight. This more or less puts everyone but Sonic out of the fight, as while Tails and Eggman have means of joining him in the air, the now Golden Blur urges them to hang back and be ready to use that rifle when he takes it from Robo-Dork. Unfortunately for the Hedgehog, it seems his usual brand of sass and mockery has no impact on Supreme, who continues its assault, this time by having its support drones fire dozens of giant yellow energy crystals that Sonic must duck and weave to avoid as he attempts to close in again, since if he can't coax the rifle out, he'll just have to rip it out. However, to do so he'll need to get hold of Supreme's gun arm, something it clearly does not wish to allow, as when he gets close it performs a brutal spin attack that sends him soaring backwards into a series of those energy crystals which explode on contact for extra damage. Were he not supersonic right now, this would probably be enough to knock him out cold, if not worse, though even his super state will not protect him from what's coming, as the Titan finally extends its weapon and aims right at the Hedgehog. Urgently, Knuckles, Amy, Tails, and Emerald all yell for Sonic to move, though grinning confidently he tells them not to worry about a thing. Then, as the shot is fired, he races forward and curls up for an aerial spin dash. A moment later the two bolts of brilliant gold collide, with it coming as a shock, but a welcome one, when the Titan's attack is repelled and sent right into its chest. As this happens, the ancient war machine seems to lose its strength, dropping back to the ground where it falls to its knees in defeat, while up above Sonic uncurls himself. In a slightly disappointed tone, he admits that he was trying to hit the rifle, since it'd be cool if he knocked the weapon out of its hand with its own attack, but it is pretty hard to aim while spinning despite how easy he makes it look, and he supposes the Eggster did say a shot from that would finish it, so all's well that ends well. With this declaration, the heroic Hedgehog returns to the ground where he prepares to drop out of his super state now that the battle's over, though it seems this is a misapprehension as suddenly a deep magenta light bathes the island, and a malevolent moon rises into view just outside the atmosphere. While this not bad enough, a cord of pink energy then descends from the moon, hooking into the Supreme and transforming it into a giant mechanical spider, while the voice of the End booms out for all to hear, declaring that once the Titan was its prison, but now it shall be the avatar of its return, and that all life shall perish, since the only way to bring order in this universe is through oblivion. Back in cyberspace, another metamorphosis is also in progress, as having been overwhelmed by his original form, the Metal Commander now decides to cheat, letting out a roar as he becomes Metal Overload, or as he calls it, Metal Overlord, since it will be with this form that he finally crushes his other half beneath his boot. As it turns out, this is meant in the more metaphorical sense, as the actual thing he intends to crush Metal with are the spikes on his back, which he fires like missiles, forcing the Bluebot to activate his black shield in order to avoid being skewered. Nonetheless, even though this attack is unsuccessful, it is still enough to earn a mad jeering laugh from the envious Abomination, as he demands to know if his counterpart has figured out he's doomed yet, since this time there's no Meddlesome E-series to back him up, nor another battle with Sonic and his friends to distract him. There's only the two of them, and in a direct competition, the Overlord will always prove superior. He then lashes out with one of his giant claws, knowing Metal won't be able to reactivate his shield that fast, making his destruction all but assured, though when his clawed paw strikes his doppelganger, he finds resistance that should not be there. Peering down at where the smaller android's scattered remains should be, Metal Overlord is horrified to see that not only is his foe still standing, but his tiny hand is somehow pushing back against his giant one. Then, Metal's green optics flash upwards to make eye contact with his evil half. While in a factual tone, he states that the Overlord has made one critical error in his calculation. This fight is not just between the two of them, since as the monster said, he has copied the lifeform data of all his friends, meaning that not only does he carry their wills inside him, but he also carries their power. On this last word, he reveals how he has been holding his nemesis' hand at bay, with this being thanks to the telekinetic abilities he gained from scanning Silver, though this is not all they're good for, as with a grunt, he then forces the appendage aside, allowing him to tap into Blaze's pyrokinesis and hurl a fireball up at the Overlord. Being a gargantuan monstrosity, the robotic dragon has no problem avoiding this, though the same cannot be said for the flying kick that follows when Metal appears directly in front of him by utilizing Shadow's Chaos Snap. Even in the face of this reversal, Metal Overlord is unimpressed, firing a torrent of crystalline lasers that Metal is only able to narrowly avoid, though this does allow him to get in even closer, so that when he shifts his fist into the spiked glove worn by Knuckles and Scrap, he's able to drive it into his dark half's jaw with all his might. Letting out an enraged roar, the Overlord next attempts to bite down on Metal and cleave him in half with his razor fangs, though thinking fast, the heroic android spins out of the way at the last second. As he does this, he also bids his spike fist to change, damage, so that when he completes his aerial rotation, it is transformed into a facsimile of Amy's Pico Pico hammer, which he slams into Metal Overlord's lower optical sensor, shattering it and leaving the dragon with only his smaller upper eye. However, he does not have this for much longer either, as at that moment Metal shifts his other hand into Gamma's gun configuration and fires a single shot that leaves the beast blind. By now, the Overlord has begun to recognize his disadvantageous position. Though having been programmed to dominate, this is what he attempts to do once more, roaring that he fears nothing and is the world's supreme being, though to Metal, this just sounds like the ravings of a terrified wretch. Having no desire to inflict prolonged suffering even on a creature as foul as his dark doppelganger, the Bluebot then prepares to end things quickly with Sonic and Mecha's signature spin dash. Though before he does, he has one last message for the Metal Overlord, that all these abilities he's gained are in part due to his copying power, so he will continue to carry a piece of him inside himself as well. Then, with nothing else to say, he strikes, homing in on the Overlord's CPU and ending him in an instant. With this done, both Metal and the Phantom Ruby hit the ground, though in spite of having just fought one of his toughest battles to date, the Bluebot feels lighter than ever while all around him a ring of sparkles burst into life. From his same position as before, the Master King acknowledges the android did well, and has now tempered himself, so the power to harness cyber corruption is his. However, he should be warned that this power is a fragile thing, and it will take time for his body to acclimate to it, so he must use it sparingly, otherwise he will lose it forever. Nodding his understanding, Metal thanks the Monarch for this, and for helping him to put an old ghost to bed, while in turn the Master King states there is nothing more he can do, so he is entrusting the fate of the world to him. A moment later, Metal finds himself back in reality, though from the looks of things he has been gone a while, as night has fallen, though he does not like the unnatural magenta hue everything has gained in his absence, nor is the presence of a new celestial body hovering directly above them all a particularly welcome sight. Scanning this new supermoon for any useful information he can glean, it does not take the Bluebot long to spot the pink energy cable, and following it to its source, he quickly spies his friends engaged in battle with the great insectoid Titan. Knowing he doesn't have a second to waste, the android hero powers up to super metal and takes flight, putting his title as fastest machine in existence to the test, as he tears his way down to the battlefield and immediately goes on the attack, with a kick to Supreme's head while Sonic, who is also back in Super, is drawing its attention elsewhere. Spotting this, the Hedgehog quips that Metalhead definitely knows how to make an entrance, though he still says his against Wyvern was cooler, while down below, his friends, sister and son all greet him with cheers. Turning his now red eyes upon them, the noble robot asks if they are all okay, with Amy giving him a thumbs up between swings of the Titan's legs, and Emerald acknowledging that he and Sage have ensured that everyone has maximized their damage output while prioritizing their well-being. Unable to avoid boasting, Eggman does add that the credit for this lies more with Sage's vast computational power than the outdated Gizoid, who in spite of his rudeness, he is also helping, having activated his Eggmobile's lasers and begun firing them at Supreme's head. Against a masterpiece of ancient engineering empowered by the hatred of a dark god, these blasts don't achieve much, though the sight of the Doctor fighting alongside him and his friends is almost enough to blow Metal's logic circuit. Nonetheless, now is not the time for marveling, and so rejoining the fight alongside Sonic, Metal slams into Supreme's head once more with a super homing attack, while the Blue Blur follows up with a flying bicycle kick on the same spot that sends shockwaves rippling through the air. However, in the wake of this powerful combo move, the damage simply heals itself the moment they stop attacking, leaving the ancient mech as good as new, while Sonic grimaces that this is the problem they've been facing since that thing mutated. Logically, Metal questions if this could be a result of its connection to the end, with Tails agreeing that this is his hypothesis, but they haven't been able to get at that pink cable, since every time they try, it enacts some new defense protocol to keep them away. Gritting his proverbial teeth, the android then calls out to Sage and Emerald, asking them to plot a way for him to reach the cord, with the addendum that he is willing to accept a strategy that will result in injury to himself provided it is not critical. Urgently, Emerald retorts there's no need for that if his father will just let him help, though solemnly, Metal replies that he is helping, and that this order to hang back is not born of a lack of faith or trust. It is simply the logical course of action, since he is operating on reserve chaos energy which could run out at any time, so we should avoid burning it needlessly. Recognizing that his dad has his best interests at heart, Emerald acquiesces, stating that he will begin calculations now, though it may take a minute, so everyone should focus on keeping Supreme distracted. Nodding, the heroes all then redouble their attacks, with Metal using this moment to scan the Titan in the hope of finding a weak point he can exploit for extra damage. Through this, he finds a small circular hatch at the base of the mech's neck which is mostly shielded by its back armor, but which should be accessible to a small target, like one of them while curled in a ball. Liking where his robot buddy's head's at, the blue blur grins that he's got this, with Metal in turn promising to keep the Titan's attention while Sonic lines up the shot. With this plan now set, the pair break apart, with the heroic android wasting no time in laying down a barrage of fast-paced hits on Supreme's cranium. As with all the rest, these repair themselves, though they do serve the intended purpose of angering the beast, so that the arms extending from its back make a concerted effort to grab him. Fortunately, the blue bot is faster, zipping between the grasping hands while staying just close enough that the Titan's focus will remain on him. Meanwhile, having gotten into position, Sonic launches his most ambitious homing attack yet, coming in from the side where Sage theorizes Supreme cannot see him, only to slingshot around his robotic doppelganger for a literal curveball that strikes the hatch dead on. As he does, he realizes that this isn't actually a hatch, but rather the barrel of the Titan's rifle, a fact confirmed a moment later when the force of the hit blasts the weapon out of its holster and into the air. Down below, Amy, Tails, and Knuckles all cheer that he did a great job. Then as it lands, they work as one to pull it out of the ground and deliver it to Eggman so he can begin prepping it to fire. However, in doing so, they all find themselves bunched up, and whether because of simple machine logic that it should eliminate the maximum number of targets it can, or due to the end's cruel cognizance figuring the best way to hurt its main threats is by killing all of their friends in one fell swoop, Supreme quickly changes tack, turning all its attention to the group, and launching a barrage of red crystalline laser spikes too numerous for even Metal to count. In the face of so many attacks, there is nothing the heroes can do to save themselves, though this does not mean there is no one who can save them, as taking flight, Sage places herself in front of the others and manifests a massive blue energy shield that keeps the spikes at bay. However, even her best effort is not strong enough to hold back the full might of Supreme, with the barrier quickly beginning to flicker and weaken. That is until another figure joins her in the air, Emerald, as by adding his strength to hers, he's able to reinforce the shield and ensure that it withstands the onslaught. Though, this is not without cost, as when Sage finally drops the wall of energy, Emerald himself likewise drops, crashing to the ground while Sage, Amy, and Metal all rush to his side. From a glance, it is plain to see that he is out of energy and only barely hanging on to life, but even still, he has not forgotten his goal to be a hero just like his dad, and so leaning forward, he relays his plan to destroy that energy tether. In that moment, Metal doesn't care about the plan. He doesn't care about the fight or the end or any of it. He just wants to go home and see his son safe and happy again. That's the only thing that matters. But then, he remembers that this is not the person he has chosen to be, the person his friends rely on, and the one Emerald has come to look up to, and so rising to his shaking feet, he urges his son to hang on just a little bit longer, since he has a plan to save him. Then, as he casts his optics up at Supreme in the end as the architects of this tragedy, he feels new strength blooming within him. Though, this is not a pleasant power-up, but instead an agonizing one, as all the cyber corruption inside him ignites and becomes fuel, with a sudden burst of power sending red and gold ripples through the air. Not only that, but when he comes back into view amidst his blazing aura, Metal's eyes have become a bright, shining blue. Refusing to allow his son's sacrifice to be in vain, the enraged bot takes off, feeling no need for quips or taunts against this monster. He is simply going to tear it apart and finish things right here. However, it seems Supreme has other ideas, as like Tails said, it immediately begins enacting a hitherto unseen defense protocol, in this case, manifesting a massive ball of malefic black and red crackling energy that it hurls at Metal with the intent to disintegrate him. This had not been part of Emerald's plan, with the blue-eyed bot needing a moment to recalculate, though seeing that he doesn't have this, Sonic leaps in to buy his buddy time, placing his palms against the orb and doing his best to hold it back, even as the force of it is enough to knock him out of his super state at last and send him crashing into the dirt. Recognizing what his old friend has done for him, Metal gives the hedgehog a small nod of thanks. Then, with his path clear again, he flies at top speed and slams into the energy cable, tearing it free of Supreme. Briefly, the android hero wonders if this will spell the end of the battle now that the Titan is no longer being controlled. Though, nothing can be so simple, as while Supreme writhes on the ground, unable to heal itself of further damage, the End fixes its cosmic gaze on a potential new avatar, declaring that it will make Metal its instrument and harness his power to bring about the oblivion it desires. Flatly, the brave bot states that he refuses, though the End refutes that he doesn't have a choice. He is a machine and was created to enact the will of his master, just like the Titans. In an attempt to prove the truth of this claim, the Dark God then thrusts his energy cord at Metal so that it might bond with him and seize control, though before it can make contact, the blue-eyed bot wraps his hand around the tube and growls that the only will he enacts is his own. Then, with a single motion, he tears the cable from the end, leaving the malefic moon with its first visible injury, or with an equally fluid motion, he dives, zipping between the legs of Supreme and driving a 2-footed kick into its stomach that sends it shooting high into the air. From where the others are gathered, Eggman's voice then rings out, telling him to get inside the rifle, since they have a plan to shoot him through the Titan and into the end, taking them both out and finally finishing things. Seeing the logic in this, the android agrees, taking flight once more and zooming down the barrel of the gun. Then, once he is in position, he gives a quiet apology to the Master King, as it seems he is going to overload this new power after all. While from outside, Eggman growls that he better be ready, since Sage has the shot lined up. However, to the Doctor's surprise, the Blue Bot requests that they alter the trajectory by 3 degrees to the left, a claim that makes the mustachioed mad scientist bark that he must have a screw loose, since that will miss part of the core and ensure the end survives. Solemnly, Metal replies that he knows, since that is his intent, to critically injure and incapacitate the end but not destroy it, as after speaking with the heroes of the past, he theorizes its energy can be used to save Emerald's life. Knowing they only have seconds before their window of opportunity closes, Eggman snaps that it's all well and good to want to save his son, but if he's wrong, they'll all be killed, since Sonic's too spent to go super again for a second shot at this. Though earnestly, Metal poses his creator a question. If their roles were reversed and the gamble was to save Sage, would Eggman take it? For a moment, the bald scientist is silent. Then with a grumble, he tells Sage to change the trajectory as per Metal's instructions, with the AI doing so and clearing her father to fire when ready. Letting out a huff that he hopes Metal Sonic knows what he's doing, the Doctor then fires, and as the heroic android bursts skyward, his golden body transforms into a patchwork of glitching black and blue. However, with this compounding transformation also comes a sharp increase in power, so that as Metal makes impact, he cleanly cleaves through Supreme, and then carries on to bore a hole through the center of the end. In the aftermath of this, the magenta hue bathing the island begins to fade, and the electricity in the air subsides at last. Though as Metal had hoped, the cosmic horror is not destroyed, having instead been brought to the brink of death just as he wants it. Dropping out of his super state, the Blue Bot then draws the Master Emerald into one hand and the Phantom Ruby into the other, before pointing them both at the damaged body of the end, and attempting to use Chaos Control along with the reality-altering power of the Ruby to turn the evil entity into something that can save his son. At once, the surface of the sinister moon starts cracking like an egg, so that before long, it is little more than chunks of stone in the atmosphere, while where its core was floats a wine-dark gem that thrums with the same sort of energy the end did. Hoping this is the object he needs, Metal bursts downwards to gather it up. Then, as he descends back into the atmosphere, he lands amidst his friends. However, in that moment, he only has eyes for one of them, and so striding forward, he takes a knee beside Emerald. In a weak voice, the Gizoid apologizes for breaking his promise. Though shaking his head, the robotic father assures him that it doesn't matter. This new gem will make it all better. Then, as he holds out the astral onyx to his son, Emerald consumes it, just as he did the Chaos Emeralds during their first adventure together. Briefly, time seems to stand still and nothing happens, with a terror far greater than the end ever induced in him gripping the Blue Bot. But then, slowly, Emerald begins to rise, his movements seeming the same as they ever were. Standing alongside him so he can offer a steadying hand, Metal asks his son how he feels, to which the Gizoid grins that he feels good as new, maybe even a little better, since this new gem has more power than the Chaos Emeralds, but not so much that he feels overwhelmed. Nodding, Metal replies that he hypothesized as much, since Emerald has one key difference to Supreme when it comes to serving as a housing unit for the End's power. He is a Gizoid, and was designed to take the abilities of others and make them his own, so unlike the Titan, this assimilation will only strengthen him. From behind the pair, Tails laughingly wonders why he didn't think of that, while Eggman grumbles that he still thinks it was too great a risk for one machine. However, when Metal casts his green eyes upon his creator, it is to thank him for his role in the plan from one father to another. He then turns to face his friends, first returning the Master Emerald to Knuckles, since it is rightfully his and he has borrowed it for long enough, before more shockingly offering the Phantom Ruby to Sage. Curiously, the AI girl questions why he is doing this, though giving her what might be considered a fond look, he replies that this will allow her to maintain her form outside the Starfall Islands and their connection to cyberspace, though this does come with a warning that the Ruby belongs to the Scrapniks and is being lent to Sage exclusively, so should the Doctor attempt to use it for his own nefarious ends, he will have to answer to Metal and his brothers. Surprisingly, Eggman retorts that his creation need not worry about him stealing the Ruby, since he has no interest in it anymore, and while the Blue Bot can tell this latter claim is untrue, he does believe the former, since the Doctor would not want to deprive his daughter of her autonomy. Speaking of, he then proceeds to give Sage her new instructions now that the crisis with the End has passed. She is to accompany Metal Sonic back to Scrapnik Island, where she will serve as the Eggman Empire's ambassador. After all, if the rest of the world is going to acknowledge that island as a sovereign nation, he's not going to let his empire fall behind. At once, the girl's blue eyes light up, as now she will get the chance to meet her brothers just like she wanted. Though when she thanks her father, he gruffly tells her not to mention it, or making some half-hearted comment about remembering that she's there to work. Then, with this resolved, he powers up the Eggmobile and flies off into the night. Though as Metal watches him go, he does not wish him ill for the first time in a long time. This just leaves the heroes to find their way home, with Tails stating the tornado wasn't damaged in the landing, so he should be able to fly them, though it may be a bit challenging now they have 3 passengers when they only arrived with 2. Shrugging, Sonic tells his best pal that Knux can have his seat. Since now they have the Chaos Emeralds back, he'll just fly home, and honestly, he's excited to see how much faster he can go since he's way stronger than he was before they went away. Chuckling fondly, Amy smiles that he never changes, does he? Though that's one of the things she'll miss most about him, since after her experiences here, she's sure now that she wants to go on her mission of love. Feeling likewise inspired, Knuckles declares his own intent to stop slacking on his training when he returns to Angel Island, so that next time a world-ending threat appears, he'll have the strength to be the one who saves the day. Meanwhile, Tails states that he's decided he wants to strike out on his own some more, since he's realized he's always the one who needs saving, like back on Chaos Island when he was trapped in that cage, so it's high time he becomes a hero who can stand shoulder to shoulder with his friends rather than chasing their backs. Smiling proudly, Sonic gives all 3 of them his seal of approval, calling these great goals, while Metal, Emerald, and Sage all add their agreement and wave the trio off as they go to board the plane that will carry them to their respective destinations. Not long after this, Sonic departs as well, teasing that Metalhead better watch out, since once he's back in the swing of using the emeralds, they're gonna have a proper rematch race. Meeting his doppelganger's eyes without hesitation, the blue bot replies that he's looking forward to it. Then, when it is just the 3 artificial life forms, he tells his sister and son to form up on him as his jet engine whirs into life and he begins his liftoff sequence. In a tone of curiosity, Sage asks what their destination is, though giving her a look filled with familial fondness, Metal states that it can be whatever she wants it to be, since they have a whole wide world to explore, teeming with new experiences and adventures to be had. And that's where we'll leave this series. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.